Well, my name is Steve Masterson, and I grew up in Sexsmith, Alberta. After our honeymoon, we went to Steinbach, Manitoba to be youth pastor. And so that's where we started to set our life in a direction. Jackie and I went to Chicago, to Deerfield, and I took an MA in education. And there, the two presidents of Winnipeg Bible College were there looking for graduates who might come and help us here. And so they asked me to come back, and for 10 years I did the Dean of Students in the college.
I walked into those doors the first time when I was 18. Met my wife here, met Steve. Steve was actually waiting for me at the door when I came in at 18. I was a brand new Christian, and he's had my number ever since. He took me under his wing, and it was a life-changing force for both of us over time. I took his counseling courses in the college, fell in love with counseling, and knew I had to do that. And something inside of me just rose up like nothing has ever happened to me before, and I said, I have to be there. I didn't know why. I just knew that every fiber of my being had to be there. And I found out they were going too. And as soon as Katie found out Jackie's going as well, that was it for us. And we had an amazing time in Indiana. And then came back here, and we were the very first graduates. It was biblical counseling. Crab was very, very clear about this. He was a licensed psychologist. He didn't really have a Bible and theology background at all, but he hung around with some of the greatest evangelical biblical scholars of our time.
The president came to me and said, I've been receiving from graduates from the MDiv program over the years that their courses in preparing them to pastor, Greek and Hebrew and all of that, but they were saying if somebody comes in, say a marriage couple, and they don't like each other, we really didn't get any training as to how do I sort this out. And then the Dean of Seminary said, you have to teach a 2-week course on counseling.
It grew very fast. We were very surprised at how it went from virtually nothing to
I think
the tail was wagging the dog after a while.
It was somewhere about 16 to 18 people came on full time, and then there were people that wanted to start taking a few courses, and the word of mouth just spread like fire.
There was nobody else to teach this material except us, I taught his counseling class in the college that year. It scared the out of me, but I did that, and that was where he changed my life. And now I'm teaching his stuff, and he's upstairs teaching this new program, and he's begging me to come. And Dr. Eichhorst, the president, was begging me to come. And I finally went to him one day, and I says, listen, I know I'm one of the rare few people that have this kind of training, but I says, if I were going to a graduate school right now, and I knew that one of the professors had a 1-year MA and no experience, I would never go to that school. And he looked at me and he says, well, that's your problem. He says, because we're asking you to do this and help us build this program. And so I realized, well, maybe I should do this, because, the people who I had highly admired thought I could pull it off. So I finally joined Steve for the 2nd year, and we did, the rest is history.
The students had to get past their fear of being vulnerable and transparent, and they had to learn to trust us as the professors, and so we would let the students know our vulnerabilities and what our soul is like, and what God's doing in our life, and so I believe that that's what created an awareness that this is all about God. The whole definition of being the biblical institute, the foundation had to be the Word of God. And it had to be the Word of God that God has designed to transform us and to basically make us more like Jesus and let us become the person that He created us to be.
When you add the Christian element, there's an element of hope, and I think that element alone can be very healing. If a person can find the faith to believe that they are alone but not alone, they have a camaraderie or a companionship that doesn't leave them utterly isolated in hardship. So I think that's a big piece right there.
I would just be sitting there kind of tongue-tied, like, Lord, you are in this. Like, where are these people? What are they hungry for? Like, and the longing of their souls were just became so evident. And so for Don and I to help them learn to identify the deepest longings of their soul, and that longing needs to ultimately take us right back to the very heart of God.
The growth required us to grow a lot. We had to grow. We started to take up a lot of space. Just the physical structure of this building, we started to take up a lot of space and more of the budget. It was constantly growing. We developed a third-year program, which was now trying to take people outside of counseling each other into, real-life scenarios outside. And so I was assigned to set up the contact with services, in southern Manitoba, where our students can get lined up with the Manitoba Adolescent Treatment Center, the Addictions Foundation, various places like that, where they would also be working in a more secular environment. Because if this message, of what the human heart needs to hear isn't relevant to everybody, if it's only relevant to people that are Christians, for me, I didn't even really want to be a part of that, because the human structure is the image of God. And so there's got to be something about the way we relate to each other that is common to all men and women, not just people who already believe in Jesus. So getting our students out there into the broader world of serving any human being that they come in contact with and learning how to become comfortable with it. So that was for me a big thing, trying to learn how to set something like that up. We were shocked over time, the kinds of placements our students got with this theological degree. The whole social work world treated our master's degree as a master's in social work, and I think a lot of our students were at least as well equipped to sit down with people. They may not have had all of the social services training, which they can get anywhere, and other people taking this and doing programs in the mission field, and just they did to us what we did to Crab and Islanders, is can we take this material and make it work here, in the northern Canada with the First Nations people. And it's shocked me at, what these two guys without doctorates could do.
Allender said to us when we graduated, he says, I would never let you counsel my mother yet. Something like that.
Basically, he wanted us to know we're not ready, but we got to go now.
Yeah.
And I said that to many other students over time. Like, it's about time, they're graduating, and they feel like we're not ready yet. And I said, you're not, but you got to go and do it anyway. That's the only way you get ready is by doing it. I take great pride in knowing this is still running. One of my daughter's best friends is just graduating from the program. This is good. And to think that we had a not small part to play in this, Steve.
That's right.
Not bad, eh? Some of the very richest years of my life spent here, and this man dragged me into it.
In the big picture, I think that, God was in control, and when we trust Him and depend on Him, Because there's no way Don and I could have ever made this thing happen.